Hello YouTube friends, Ben Ochart here. Thank you for tuning in. Today I want to talk with you about what I think is the perfect home aquarium. And I'm going to talk to you about it from different angles, from the setup to the substrate to the filtration, and in the end I'm going to give you my final thoughts and conclusions about it as to what I think would make the perfect home aquarium. Let's go ahead and get into it. If you're new to the channel and you like the content, be sure to hit that subscribe button and also the bell icon and that notification bell. That tells YouTube something good is going on and encourages YouTube to send other fish keepers to the channel. That's how the channel grows, and I appreciate it when you do that. Thank you so much. I'm about to embark in the setting up of a 300-gallon aquarium, and there's various steps and component parts that you have to start thinking about, from the footprint of the tank, where it's going to go, the availability of things like a water source, electrical requirements, temperature of the room, the strength of the floor. I mean, there's lots of things you consider when you bring in an aquarium, especially a large unit that's going to require a tremendous amount of filtration, a lot of heat, right? Very powerful heaters, many pounds of substrate, and so there's a lot of planning that goes into it, as well as plumbing, which I'm going to be I'll be cutting pipes and gluing and fitting and things of that nature for a DIY do-it-yourself sump I'm going to be putting together. So this got me thinking, like, okay, let's say that I didn't have this garage, this fish room. Instead, I was, I had a moderate-sized apartment or home. What would be the ideal aquarium? Now, certainly, living on the second floor of an apartment building, a 300-gallon would probably be out of the question, not even allowed probably by the very leasing agreement that you're in renting that apartment. So you would need to stay, I imagine, somewhere on the high end, probably between 55 gallons and 125 gallons. Even 125 might be pushing it if you're renting. Of course, if you own the place and you're confident about the floors, 125 gallon is a great size, especially when you consider you're 6 feet across, a lot of swim room, and so that would be, I think, a great size. But for a lot of homes and a lot of apartments, a 55 to a 75, that little sweet spot there is going to be plenty, and it's going to really minimize the risk of damaging the floors, and usually would be accepted or winked at by most landlords if you're renting. So I think size-wise, ideally, and also when you look at it from the viewpoint of maintenance based on your lifestyle, if you're working long hours, things of this nature, you probably don't want to go with an aquarium setup that requires a tremendous amount of maintenance. So you're not going to get a lot of very dirty fish with a white substrate, for example. That would just, you'd have to vacuum like every other day. So I'm thinking 60 to 125 is the sweet spot, and I'm thinking based on the kind of fish that you want. Naturally, you get bigger fish, get the bigger sizes. With regards to filtration, and I think something that is redundant, or by redundant, what I mean a backup type of a system. So 2 hang-on back filters, maybe a canister and a hang-on back filter combination. That could work. If you get up over 100 gallons, a sump and a canister, or a sump and a hang-on back. Something that in the event that one of the 2 fails, you have something else running, and while you're doing maintenance on one of them, the other one is untouched. And so you have a much less likelihood of doing a very drastic disruption of the beneficial bacteria, and by doing so, possibly create an ammonia spike and kill off your fish, right? Like you hear so many stories. I just did a water change, my fish died, right? You hear that a lot. So with filtration, I do have some notes here. You know me, I like to take notes, right? So with filtration, redundancy and backup, easy for you to work with. This is important. Let's say you have back problems. I've known people with back problems. I wouldn't suggest canisters. They're bulky, they're a little bit hard to move around, they are heavy, so a person with back problems, I would encourage them to consider going with hang-on back filters, or maybe even sponge filters if they don't mind the what they look like. You know, some people don't like that big sponge sitting in an aquarium. Sometimes you can, disguise it or hide it behind some decor, some plants. If you hide it too well, though, it's not going to be able to do its job. So you got to kind of think around that. But what kind of filtration? Get filtration that is easy for you to work with, that you're not going to put off maintenance because the idea of working on it, like you dread the idea of actually working on it. Keep that in mind. And a hang-on back filter, I think, is the easiest kind of filter to work with. I prefer it even to a sponge, and I'll tell you why. A sponge can get really gunked up, and then when you go to move it, it's going to release a lot of that into the aquarium. Granted, it clears up pretty quickly, but you don't run into that problem necessarily with a hang-on back, except what you might stir up when you're messing with the media. So you might get an initial squirt of detritus when you turn it back on, but you don't get a lot of the gunk you would get from a gunked up sponge filter that you move out of the tank. When I have to change out the Expertmatic filters in some of the tanks that I have these Expertmatics cylinders that attach to the side. They have sponge with power head, bubbler, and I've got to run a plastic bag, all the way up the cylinder, and before I pull it out. And by the time I get that filter to the sink, that plastic bag is full of dark brown water. That dark brown water would be inside the aquarium if I didn't put a plastic bag around it. So probably you have to do that with sponge filters too. So a hang-on back for a person that doesn't want to be lifting things that are heavy. If you're getting a little older, a hang-on back, I think is the way to go. And also think what's within your budget, right? So a hang-on back, there's different hang-on backs. You can go with name brands, right? And or you can go with lesser name brands. There's a lot of different levels, and people get into upsets and arguments. Well, this kind's better, that one's trash, blah blah blah. You know what? Try it out. See what you think. Make up your own mind about it. I run Marineland Emperor 400s on these tanks, and I've had nothing but positive with those. They never leaked. They don't make noise. They move a lot of water. They trap a lot of waste. My tanks are not cloudy, and yet there are a lot of folks out there that would rag on those hang-on back filters. But I'll tell you, budget-wise, you can find them on eBay fairly inexpensive. So think about your budget, and think also about how much water you want to turn over. If you're going to be keeping real messy fish, like goldfish, let's say, or cichlids, very messy. You got to feed them a lot. They eat a lot of protein, and they're going to produce a lot of waste. And you probably want to turn that tank over somewhere between 5 and 10 times an hour. That's a lot of gallons per hour. Okay. Now, compare that, let's say, to something like a betta. Right, you're going to keep a betta, and you don't want to have a lot of water movement with the betta, because with those broad fins, the betta just gets blown around, right? So you're going to have maybe, I don't know, 3 to 5 times per hour turning over that, whatever they're in. The bed itself is not going to create a tremendous amount of waste. You're doing a little bit of feeding, maybe twice a day. So again, kind of think with it. Think with regards to what you want to do, and also think about what food, because the food that you use also can determine how messy your aquarium is. There were some foods in the past that were popular in the hobby, but I tried them and they just left my tank cloudy for long periods of time. Some of those brands have cleaned up their act, pun intended, and they don't do it anymore. Some have reduced the amount of ash and fillers and other products that they used to include in their food, right? Colors and things, and now those are cleaner. I'm not going to get into name brands or rag them, but if you follow my channel, you know that's the one place I say don't cut corners. Get the best food you can afford. What do I think is the best food? I've had great results with Extreme, which I get from the Cichlids. I also love Pisceine Energetics. Also, I get it from the Cichlids. And also, way back when, I used to get Northfin. I had good results with Northfin. And so anyway, there's some good quality foods out there. You'll pay a little more, but I think you'll have a cleaner tank. You'll have less waste, less byproducts. Your fish are not going to be using energy to move something through their body that they're not even going to get nutrition from, right? All right, so how about lighting? The lighting should be strong enough to light the tank to your liking, right? So what, 6,500 lumens, maybe 20 inches, 22 to 24 inches. You're going to need maybe 6,000 lumens, enough to really light it up the way you want it lit up. I don't like my tanks super blinding bright. So I like light fixtures, lighting, LED lights that you can adjust. You can adjust the intensity. The Hygger lights, the original Hygger lights, had various levels of intensity. The lights I have on back here, the JC&P, and even the Aqua light, you can turn them up or turn them down. You can put more blue, more red, more white, less blue, less red. So think in terms of how bright you want your tank to be. Some people like a little bit of shadow in the back. I like a little blue and red in the back of my tank, and very often I don't even use white back there. With those two, I have 3 fixtures on the tank, and again, redundancy and backup. One of my LEDs blow out, like if I just had one 72-inch LED on here and it blew out, I'd have no lights. So instead I have 3 fixtures on here. So if one blows out, I have 2 lighting the tank until I get a replacement. The 2 in the back are primarily used for mood, red, red and blue, maybe a little bit of white, and the one in the front really is just plain white right now. It's an aqua, plain white light. The 2 in the back are JC&Ps that let me control red, white, and blue individually. How about substrate? Now, substrate, you want to get substrate that's going to bring out the best color in your fish. Now, I have found from experience, dark substrate will make your fish a little bit darker. You're going to be getting fish that are already very dark. They're dark blue, they're black, you might not want dark substrate. They're going to go too dark on you. And so if you have very light colored fish, a lot of very silvery platinum angel fish and things of this nature, you might not want white substrate. So in my case, I've gone with this sort of salt and pepper mix that I came up with myself, consisting of 45% carob sea white, like a crushed coral aragonite combination. I also have some black aragonite and some black imaginarium. So 45%, 45%, and then 10% of imaginarium, which is just a black sand from Petco. With heating your tanks, especially in the winter, keep this in mind. Try and go with 5 watts per gallon. 5 watts per gallon, so 100-gallon tank, go with 500 watts. Or you could get with a couple 250-watt units and run them into a 2-plug controller. That would be ideal. And even if you did 2 500-watt units, again, if one were to fail, the other one could handle the load of the entire tank. So those 2 500-watt units will heat the tank up really quickly, but with a controller, it'll shut the tank off at the temperature that you want. So something to consider. Again, redundancy and backup with heaters in a 2-plug controller. And probably the most important thing, and what I think would make a tank the most ideal and probably the most perfect tank, is that the tank appeals to you and it's a seasoned tank. It's been established. You put fish in there and they don't struggle. They tend to they tend to blossom on you. It's it's a mature tank. It has just a lot of beneficial bacteria built up in it, and it appeals to you. Doesn't matter whether it appeals to anybody else, whether anybody else likes it or doesn't like it, but when you sit in front of it, it gives you joy and it gives you relaxation. It's a lot more joy and relaxation than it is work. And that's very, very important. If you look at your tank and all you see whenever you look at it are things that you need to change, and you feel a sense of urgency or anxiety when you sit in front of your tank, something's wrong. You got to change that. So the ideal tank, I think, to sum it up, somewhere in the 60 to 125 range for most people, especially if they're renting a house or an apartment. And I would say the concept of redundancy, whether it's with heating, lights, right, filtration, splitting the load between several products, and buying those products within your budget. Most importantly of all, that the whole setup is a source of joy and relaxation and fun, and you feel a sense of relaxation when you look at it, not a sense of anxiety and things I need to do and things of that nature. Okay, so that's my 2 cents on what an ideal tank is. Certainly things that I'm rolling around in my head. These videos help me clarify my thoughts in preparation for the arrival of a very large tank. And also I have some smaller tanks here that I'm trying to figure out what to do with. The 10-gallon Betta, the 8-gallon planted tank, the 29-gallon, what used to be a hospital tank, which is now turned into what looks like a planted community tank. And so, and what am I going to do with these 255s? Am I going to leave them there? Am I going to move them out? Am I going to put the 300 against that wall? So there's a lot of things going on in my head. So give me your tips below, and stay tuned, because it's only going to get more fun around here. All right? So that's it for me. I'll see you on Saturday at Cichlids and Coffee. And if you would like to support the channel, consider becoming a Patreon member, a member of the Garage Gang, and you'll get videos that are just for the Garage Gang and pre-releases of the public videos and other good stuff, special messages, updates, things of that nature for the Garage Gang members. All right? Thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.